This artifact was commissioned by the Craig family to celebrate the musical journey of their father, Dr. J.C. Craig. I'm Colby from Artifact, and in this episode, I talk to J.C. about the moment he was inspired to learn the Dobro, some of the memorable gigs and music legends he's encountered, and why he says music has led him to some of the most meaningful friendships of his life.
Hello, I'm J.C. Craig, and I'm here to tell you about my life in music.
It was great to talk to you, JC. So let's get started at the very beginning. What are some of your earliest memories of music?
Well, to lay a little bit of background, I am a chemist by profession, and I can honestly say that my interest in chemistry was fueled by a simple factor. It came easy for me. Not necessarily a noble motivation for life's work, but I've always had a passion for music, but without the gift. Starting with a glee club in high school and band in high school. Actually, I started out on the French horn, then I went to the trumpet because it was a little bit more glamorous. When I was a freshman, I played first chair trumpet, sophomore second chair, third chair my junior year, and we didn't have a fourth chair, so I switched over to drums. But to say the least, music was much more of a challenge to me than chemistry. I got my first guitar at 15, and it was an old Silvertone, which was sold by Sears, and played different kinds of music, mostly folk and some popular, Buddy Holly, Sonny James, even a little Chuck Berry. I was pretty simple. Harlan Howard had a definition of country music, which is 3 chords and the truth. And that's basically what I've limited myself to. I know more than 3 chords, but just limit to 3 chords to each song with an occasional exception.
So at what point do you kind of become more serious about it? Was it always kind of there from the beginning to, really study it and understand it? Or was it kind of a hobby at first that became more serious as time went on?
Well, that's a good way of describing it. I've always dabbled in it, for years, from 15 to probably 25 or so. And then I got a job at Ole Miss and went down there in the early 70s. And the chancellor down there at Ole Miss, Robert Kayat, was a good friend of mine, and he played outstanding rhythm guitar, and we played music on occasion. But the event that changed my life, I would say, without a question, was I would take research proposals to Washington because they were due like at 4 o'clock, close of day on Tuesday or something, and I would fly up there. This was before the advent of FedEx. And there were some friends up there that said, we have this local part-time group that plays at the Red Fox Inn in Bethesda, and we'll take you over there. And they play bluegrass music, which I thought was a fun thing to do. They took me, and I said, these guys are really good. They ought to get a recording contract. Well, I was so naive that the group was called the Seldom Scene, SCENE. And they were, I was convinced that I had discovered a new group. And then I got to talking with people and found out that I was way behind all bluegrass. The whole world knew about these people but me, I think. But they had a Dobro player on there by the name of Mike Aldridge, and he played with that group. He played some for Linda Ronstadt and Dolly Parton. He was big time. But I said, I have got to play the Dobro. And it was the first time I'd ever seen a Dobro in person. And I immediately came back to Oxford and bought me a Dobro and said, I'm going to learn how to play this. It fit my anatomy well because I've got little short, fat fingers. And on a guitar, it's just hard to stretch around there and get all the chords on the guitar. But with a Dobro, the way I play a square neck Dobro, it's played with a bar, and you don't have to have long, slender fingers to play it. So I got into it, and it was just I just fell in love with it, and that's what I've been doing for I guess playing Dobro for 30 years. So that really was the turning point. In response to your question, what just got me serious about it, and I've continued all these years to keep working at it, and it's a big deal in my life. It really is. I enjoy every minute, and I think it's fun.
Well, you mentioned too, before we started recording, that a big thing that you feel like you've gotten from music is that sense of friendship and community with people. And I'm wondering if there were early experiences when you started playing the dobro where you kind of experienced people coming together as a group, around the band, and what that sort of meant to you.
Oh, yeah. When I went up, I would just play occasionally down in Oxford. Then I moved to Bowling Green when I was teaching at Western Kentucky University. And I met a widow lady and her adult son who played banjo. She played guitar. And my wife at the time played, we convinced her to learn the bass, which she did. So we had a 4-piece band. We would play, practice, jam, whatever, every Friday night from about 7 to midnight. And they were actually quite good musicians, and I was still learning. One interesting thing, I think, in my way of thinking, when I got up to Bowling Green, this band, incidentally, was called the Bowling Green Grass. But we got an invitation to play at a luncheon for the Kiwanis Club. Our performance was what I would term marginal. But later that week, I got a call from an attorney asking if we would play for the Southern Kentucky Bar Association meeting, which was going to be there in Bowling Green. And I was surprised, but I immediately said sure after we made the commitment with the date and so forth. He called me back and he said he didn't even ask you for a price. And I said, well, I didn't say this, but I thought we've never been paid for playing other than a free meal. And so I responded by saying, I'll give you two options. Option one, if your group wants to listen to us play, we'll play for free. And if you'd like to just drink and play grab tail, the price is $500. And he said, we'll take option two. We'll pay the $500, which I thought was kind of unique. But anyway, that same band, we also played as an opening act for the Dillards, who were in town one night for a gig. The Dillards played the Darlings on Andy Griffith's show. I'm not sure they were excited about us, but somebody had to open for them. It might as well be us, right?
That's right. So there was kind of you guys go from rehearsing and jamming and that kind of thing to having gigs and starting to kind of get some reputation around town as a go-to, kind of act for people.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, these were not high profile. We didn't play in stadiums or anything, but
sure.
And I've been doing that now for 50 plus years, I guess. The bands that I play with, we have a good time and we interact with the band, and we're good enough not to embarrass ourselves. But on the other hand, we're not accomplished enough. People say, boy, that looks like fun. I think I could do that. And it may be a little bit harder than just going out and buying a guitar and start playing.
So does the Bowling Green Grass, do they stay together for a while, or do you kind of, jump around from group to group?
We stayed around for as long as I was in Bowling Green. So it was probably about 4 years. I moved back to my hometown is in West Point, Mississippi, and I left there in '60, so this would have been probably close to a little less than 20 years I had been away. But I went back and we formed a band there, and we would play at nursing homes and community functions, and we enjoyed doing that. We also played some Civil War reenactments where we would play period songs We were actually a decent band, playing, anywhere from Bonnie Blue Flag to any of those old period songs. We had to be very careful about playing those because some of those reenactors are real serious. If we play something that really sounds a little bit like a Yankee song, we always got paid pretty good for those gigs, but I got the idea that if we didn't do pretty good on our song selections, that we might not get paid.
Right.
But while I was in Kentucky, the one interesting thing that I like to talk about was that I met a guy by the name of Haskell Hale, who was Haile. He was a cabinet maker, and at the age of about 65, he decided to start making guitars. And so he started making guitars. So I had taken one down. I don't know if it was through me or somebody else, but he'd met Chet Atkins. And so I had a guitar, and I went by RCA Studios and went into Chet Atkins' office. This is like an awesome encounter, and awesome from the standpoint of being in awe of greatness. We're sitting in there, and I've got the guitar, and in comes a guy by the name of Johnny Gamble, who played with Bob Wills, in Western Swing, and another guy by the name of Grady Martin, who played guitar. And actually, Shel Silverstein came in, who he's written books and children's books, and he is an awesome figure. I mean, he doesn't have a hair above his ears, but he's got a lot below it. He actually wrote A Boy Named Sue. I think he was Johnny Cash's brother-in-law, if I'm not mistaken. But anyway, we're sitting in there, and they all have their instruments with them. They're not playing or anything. And the producer brings in a 13 or 14-year-old kid from Knoxville and says, I got this boy, he wants to see about making a recording. Says, I don't know what you think about it, Chet. And the guy, Chet says, well, you can just sing one right now. How about singing one right now? And so he said, I know a Hank Williams song. I don't remember the kid's name. He could be Garth Brooks for all I know. But anyway, he sang and did a great job. But Chet picks up his guitar, which he had on a stand. Grady Martin's got his. Johnny Gamble's playing the fiddle. And I'm saying, this kid has no earthly idea about who he's playing with at this point in time. I mean, it's just mind-boggling, but nevertheless, an interesting experience that I like to share.
I mean, for you, you're on the other side of that. You do understand what kind of a monumental group of people this is. I mean, that must have been thrilling.
Oh, it was thrilling to be a spectator. It would have been horrible to be a participant.
Right.
I don't think I could handle the pressure of, the kid. He could have been playing with somebody, his next door neighbor, as far as he was concerned.
Right.
Anyway, I moved back to West Point, and like I say, we played some nursing homes and that kind of thing. I played with a banjo player by the name of Larry Wallace, who was a player for Jimmy Martin for over 10 years. And for somebody in bluegrass music, that's a pretty big deal. When I moved back to Franklin, though, which was in 2005, I had been serious with a commitment those times in Bowling Green and West Point, but I didn't have the opportunity that I had when I came back to Nashville area. There are people who I literally jammed about 5 nights a week.
Wow.
It was just a tremendous opportunity to jam with those people. And occasionally I'd get to jam with somebody like Jimmy Fortune, who was a singer with the Statler Brothers, the tenor singer. Actually, that's not entirely true. I didn't jam with Jimmy. We were in a room with about 14 people in there just sitting in a circle, and he sang a couple of songs that he wrote by the name of Elizabeth and More Than a Name on the Wall. And playing in somebody's living room was 14 people sitting around. And he delivered that song like he was singing in Carnegie Hall.
Wow.
And I just thought, no, that's a real performer, who just puts everything in it. But it was a good deal. It was really nice.
Yeah, it sounds like it. I wanted to ask you too about, I know that at some point you encountered Jerry Douglas, who's also a dobro player. How did that come about?
He is. We became friends, and I honestly can't remember. I can remember all of the encounters, but I'm not sure I can remember the first one. We got him to come after I had met. Actually, I bought a dobro from him, and he and his wife came to see my wife and I when we lived in White House, Tennessee. They were thinking about moving up there, and they spent some time with us. But the first time I saw him he's probably about 19 years old, and he's in his 60s now. He was playing with Ricky Skaggs and some of those guys. They used to have a festival, Kentucky Fried Chicken Festival, in downtown Louisville. I probably met him, but it was just like a fan meeting somebody famous. But we got to be good friends, and we got him. I booked Jerry Douglas and Russ Barenberg, who's a great guitar player, and Edgar Meyer, who can play anything from the most intense classical bass that you can imagine, double bass or stand-up bass. But anyway, we had the three of them down in Mississippi and for a concert. So I made a reconnection with Jerry, and kind of an interesting thing. Jerry was playing with the Whites back in the day. He had come down, and we had gone over to see him in some little town south of Birmingham. I can't remember where it was, but anyway, they were jamming out there, and Jerry had just walked off stage. And this guy came up to Jerry, and he said, I want you to show me this lick or so-and-so on the dobro. And Jerry just looked over at me and said, just ask him, talking about me. He taught me everything I know.
Wow. Oh, my
which
God.
Which was it was an astronomical lie, to say the least. But anyway, he get that guy off the back. Of course, it just floored that guy. And
right.
he looks at me with great admiration. This guy must be a real guru. But anyway, we formed a band up here. We used to do a jam at a place called Henpeck Market. We would jam every Friday nights, and I got to meet a guy by the name of Sam Dodd, who played bass here in town and played with a group that had been playing together since 1953, and that's a long time ago. And they'd played on Ralph Emery and different places. He asked me if I would play with him, and so I started playing with him, and our name was the Hickory Nuts and One Old Squirrel. We never would divulge who the squirrel was, but we were three hickory nuts, and at best we were a squirrel. We used to play regularly at a place called Kimbrough's Picking Parlor, which is a place in downtown Franklin, and we had a great run down there. But I mean, our guys I'm 79. The other guys are in their 80s. We're getting on up there, and we've had illnesses and lost spouses and that kind of thing. But I still jam 2 or 3 times a month. But it's fun, and I would just like to say that I've been blessed to have 2 women in my life. One, my wife of 52 years, who passed away in 2016 of Alzheimer's, and we've talked a lot about what music has meant to me, but music means a lot to Alzheimer's patients. It's amazing, and in her case, even toward the end, I could play songs that I didn't even remember the words to or the name of the song, and she would immediately be able to pick it up. But anyway, she always supported me right up to the very end in my music, and she enjoyed every bit of it. And in 2018, I remarried Judy, and it's the same way with her. And she, getting back to that business about friends, I'm not saying there aren't good people that have other avenues of expression other than music, but the music friends I've got are just good people. I mean, the fans are good. They're good people. Anyway, I'm still picking. I still take it out. Actually, I've got it out now. It's over here on the stand. I keep my guitar ready to go. Have guitar will travel.